Thank you everyone for joining us. This is a special edition of our customer success webinars because we have Eric with us. And he is the one who leads our company, leads our product roadmap, all those good things. Today is going to be a really interesting discussion. I got a preview of it, talking about not just where we've come from, but where we're going. And I really love the practical exercise that we are going to go over today to kind of see what the right next step could be for your company. So, without further ado, the title is Turning Construction Data into Decisions That Drive Sales. Eric, please take it away.
All right. Yeah, super excited to share this data with you guys. It's pretty insightful and actionable, and you'll be able to at least take one thing away and kind of implement it to increase your numbers. So, a little bit about me. Oh, I didn't update this. So, I gave this talk about 3 weeks back, 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago at in Vegas, and at the time, I am married still, but I have two sons. So I have a now I have a 3 week old. So I guess that was 6 weeks ago. So I'm not sleeping. I'm here. I have my coffee, my afternoon coffee. Last night the baby was up every hour, and then my 3 year old got up at 3 a.m. And so we're in that season. It's great. Love it. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
You know, one of those
Um,
questions that we ask people a lot, Eric, is what keeps you up at night? Because we're trying to help
yes.
and solve their problems. I'm glad it's not the business that's keeping you up at night. Growth of your
Yeah.
family is a good reason.
Yeah, like most people, you know what you never hear is, "Oh, my kids keep me up because they're awake." Right? So I'm just gonna start saying that. Funny. Um, I don't know if it's me freezing, but I'm going to just close down some things here just to make sure it's not me. But okay, so just a little bit of background on me. I went to Liberty University. Also got a seminary degree from Knox Seminary. Just a little fun fact there. I'm on the board of FCA at the University of Miami and co-founder of Follow Up CRM. So a little bit about Follow Up. If you don't know, we were founded by Greg Wallach in 2012. Together, we kind of brought this solution to the market and grown it over the past several years. Um, Follow Up is just built for construction companies. And now we have 5,000 users. We have integrations from Foundation to Sage, AI features coming out this quarter. So we're super excited about that. And we're growing fast. And if you guys know anybody that are maybe adjacent to your industry, because I believe we have several different industries here in the chat, just let us know. We'd happy to do a demo for them and teach them a little bit about follow up. So jumping into the chat. So one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand about follow up and CRM in general is just the value stack that we provide. So the number one thing that follow ups does is really just gets you off spreadsheets and gets your contacts, your projects, and your data in one place. Now, this is super important, especially with AI coming on the scene so quickly. Um, If you're not managing your data well in follow up, you have to start to, because AI is trained off data, right? So all the AI features that we will be releasing in the future is going to be trained on your data, right? So it's kind of like the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you want data, good AI, it's going to be trained off of that. So that's one thing that I like to share. It's funny. Sometimes I talk with people that are still on paper or spreadsheets, and then they're like, "Show me your AI features." So I'm like, "Well, the AI is as only good as your data, so you got to get started." So all right, so here's kind of the agenda for today. We're going to talk about challenges in the bidding process, the power of centralization of your data, the tools and tactics that are driving sales, case studies, and then practice growth. All right, so maybe you're doing kind of like bidding work where all you're doing is sending a bunch of bid out there. And Greg used to say, you take a bunch of spaghetti, you throw it on the wall, and you see what sticks. And whatever sticks is whatever we win. And we'll send out 100 bids, and hopefully we get one of them, right? So that's some people's strategy. However, that just makes you into a commoditized service to your customers, and I would say you're working a lot harder than you need to be because you're putting out 100 estimates, right? And you're winning one. What if there was ways to really hone in on your ideal customer profile and your past business so that you can focus on the bid that you might actually win, right? So we want to move away from spaghetti on the wall approach into like a smarter approach to bidding and sales management. So with that, obviously, when you're throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks, you're going to have a lower closing ratio. And of course, it's going to vary industry by industry and the type of work that you're doing. But when you have a low closing ratio and you're just monetize service for your customers, what happens is your pipeline starts to dry up. And then the only way you can really get jobs is by cutting margin and becoming the low cost provider. The problem with that, obviously, if there's a mistake or maybe there's rain or weather, if there's a mistake on the job, you start to really potentially lose money on jobs. There's plenty of customers that came to us in the beginning and said, sometimes we're bidding work and, it's such a low margin job that, it'll take an extra week or a couple of days, depending on the type of job. And then we start to lose money. So we need to track how long it's going to take us to do the work. And if we're bidding with with enough margin on the job to kind of have these mistakes so that we can not work for free, basically. So again, that turns that kind of organization into a bid and beg situation, wasting time estimating jobs that you might never win, right? So it's about making your team as effective as possible so that it's we'll call it like a positive spiral upwards so that you're spending time on the work that you are most likely to win. So one of the reasons that we see coming into small businesses, medium and large businesses is that the reason why we take this bid everything approach is because there's no segmentation internally at the company between responsibilities. Like even today, we had a demo with a prospect that their PMs are doing the sales, they're doing the estimating, they're doing the site visits, they're doing the full life cycle of the project. And we call this the revenue roller coaster because let's say you're bidding a project, you're estimating a project, and then you win the project. Then you have to do the project, right? You have to manage the project and make sure it's, fulfilled on time according to the budget and all of that. When you're on the doing the work side, guess what you're not doing? You're not paying as much attention to the estimating, to the bidding. And so that's why it's the revenue roller coaster of the up and down of revenue, right? So when you segregate these roles out, you can have both of these engines running at the same time, feeding each other. Now, maybe you say you're a small organization and you say, hiring another person right now is not hard, is not possible for us. Well, you can kind of segregate your calendar, right? So like, for example, if you're a PM and you're doing your sales and you're estimating, maybe you're devoting an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours of your day every day in the morning or the afternoon to devoted time just to that portion until you're profitable enough to kind of buy back your time with hiring that function out to somebody else, right? So that's what follow-up helps people do is kind of coordinate those tasks back and forth between departments, people, and teams. So, obviously we have a lot of construction companies utilizing the system. So what we did with our customer base, we looked at all the data. We looked at gross margins, closing ratios. We looked at companies with healthy backlogs and that are growing year over year. And then after we identified these kind of top tier customers, we looked at what they're doing inside the system that kind of drive these numbers, right? So we looked at the processes and activities associated with their bidding, right? And so from there, we took what we found and we created a framework of what the best do and what the worst do, right? So that you can avoid those things and then hopefully adopt some of the things that the best do. And so that's the profitable bidding framework. That's what we're going to kind of go through today. And then we'll boil this down to like actual tactic strategies. But this will help us think through what kind of company am I? Where do I land on this 2x2 matrix? And how can we either move from yellow or red or blue to green, right? Top right. So on the bottom, maybe you can identify yourself as a low margin job company or a high margin job company. And then on this axis is the number of jobs won. Maybe you're kind of a company that wins big projects, and that's fine. But there's a low volume of those, right? And so there are certain things that you need to do to not find yourself in the red or the yellow quadrant. Maybe you're a high volume construction company, like a service based company. There's certain things that you should be doing to not find yourself in like the yellow category and moving over to the green. So this is kind of like our guide today. And if you find yourself kind of like feast or famine mode, where you have these big projects that are few and far between, that if you miss this multi-million dollar project, that's going to make or break your year, and those are low margin, we call this, the bankrupt zone. You don't want to be in this zone, obviously. This is where some companies just kind of launch and die because they maybe miss those two or three big projects for the year and they have to close up shop, right? Maybe you find yourself in those big projects and you're higher margin, and that's the feast or famine. And we call that the bid and beg zone, right? So you have to you really need to capture this project to make your year, right? Maybe you find yourself in the consistently winning low margin jobs. Again, this is the high volume service oriented zone, where we call this the danger zone because it's low margin. And so there's certain things that you would need to do to get to the green zone that are a little different than like the high margin bid and beg zone, right? And then if you are consistently winning high margin job, obviously that's where we want to be. Now, if you're like a company that wins big projects, you just want to be consistently winning those, right? So if like there's, maybe you're doing like 5 or 6 big projects a year, you want to make sure that your closing ratios on those are high and that you're not like sitting on the edge of your seat waiting to see if you got the job or not. So that's the winner zone. And from the data, this is kind of the percentages that it has broken down to. So here you can see 30% danger zone, 30% bid and beg, 25% bankrupt zone, and then 10% are in the winner zone. So if you're good at math, actually, before we go into that, here you can see some characteristics of each zone. So bankrupt zone, wild, wild west, no focus, no relationships. And you're taking like any and every job you can. Like you don't have a focus on residential, commercial, or like government or whatever. There's no focus. So you're just doing whatever you can. Danger zone, again, lack of focus, lots of jobs, lots of fires, too much going on. Bid and beg zone, few jobs, no growth. And then winner zone, clear focus, good relationships, high margins, and able to say no to bad work. That's a really good indicator that you're like, we could do this job, but we would really prefer this job, right? So if you're in the chat, hopefully you can kind of associate your company to one of those quadrants. So just be thinking, what quadrant do you fall in? Just kind of going back here, maybe you find yourself like in between, like yellow turning green, or blue turning red, or blue turning green, or red turning green. Ideally, that's the direction we want to be going, but we're not going to be 100% in one category or in another, right? And there's always things we can do to improve. Now, if you did good math, you realize that we're missing 5%. Now I'm calling this the end zone. These are the people that kind of really found themselves as outliers in the data. So if you find yourself in like the danger zone, the core problem that you're wanting to solve is your prospects. We'll go deeper into this. If you're in the bid and beg zone, your core problem that you need to solve is a bigger pipeline. And then bankrupt zone, obviously, is prospects, pipeline, and process, everything. So that's what we're going to look at. What these top winners, the top 5% zone, did differently with their prospects, their playbooks, and then their pipeline management. All right. I love that gold nugget. I don't know why. It's just like high def. Sarah put that in there. Gold's at his highest peak or something right now.
It's yeah, it's got dimension to it. It pops.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's like 3D. All right. So prospects, or your leads. This is what the bankrupt zone are doing with their leads. They take anything and everything. There's no tracking to see where it came from. There's no process. I heard a statistic yesterday that if you call a lead within 60 seconds, your closing ratio goes through the roof. If you're the first to respond to a customer, it shows so much. Actually, I have a story about this where I had a leak in my roof and I called 4 roofers in my local area to come and fix it. And a lot of them just like never got back to me. It's crazy. And so I didn't go with any of them because obviously I have relationships down here. But I was just interested to see how is everybody kind of tracking their stuff. And maybe bankrupt zone is kind of like, you're wasting your time with bad leads. Bid and beg zone, you have few qualified leads. So that's the good thing that you do, that they're qualified. And you don't waste your time with bad leads, but you just don't have enough of them. So again, that's why it's a pipeline issue. So really hone into that portion of the talk here. And then the danger zone, you have lots and lots of opportunities. You may or may not have a way to process these leads well, but the good thing you do is you get your name out there, which is great. Now, the winner zone, what these people do is that they're qualifying their leads. They're saying, is this our ideal customer? They have a good lead process in place. And then top 5%. Here's what they do. Lead response time, less than 1 hour. So I said 60 seconds. If possible, I don't know why it would take more than that, to be honest. As soon as a lead enters follow-up, we see it immediately, right? So you can even set up an automation in follow-up. Is as soon as a contact is entered, you just send them an email automatically, right? Follow-up can take care of that for you to make sure you're reaching out to your leads within 1 hour at least. Very specific ideal client profile, super important. So like, for example, with follow-up, we continue to narrow in to our ideal client profile so that we know when it's a grand slam or maybe there's a better fit for you out there. One of our customers that did this really well in the residential roofing space is Kairos, which is actually our founder's son. After he left his father's company, he started Kairos Roofing, and he did residential. He had a focus on high-end residential. So basically, here in South Florida, He only did roofs for like luxury properties on the water, residential. Like we have a lot of intercoastal and beachfront properties. He basically focused on those jobs because they're high margin. They have the money to spend on a new roof, right? Rather than just saying we do residential, right? He focused his company on those projects. And actually, in 5 years, he started that company and he sold it for like 40 something $1 million. So it's crazy. And that's the power of really honing in on your ideal client. And you can figure that out pretty easily in follow up. You need to just go to the reports and configure a report to see, and then you can sort it by least to greatest margin and your company type or the project type to see where do we really win when it comes to our ideal client profile. You don't
And
have to
Eric,
like,
I'll go ahead and
yeah,
plug that we've done a webinar on that in the
yeah,
past. So if you want to check out our webinar playlist on YouTube, you can always go back and
reporting, yeah.
get the visuals and follow kind of the step-by-step process so you can pull your own.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you don't have to like imagine who your ideal client is. Just look in the history, right? Just look backwards and say, these are the people that we tend to do the best work with. Actually, that's what Greg did, our founder, back in the day. He spent the first 6 months bidding everything. And then he said, okay, what did we do the best with? Which then leads to why this is important, tracking your lead source trends, because you have all of these projects maybe coming into you, but maybe your ideal customer is coming from a particular lead source that you want to double, triple down on, right? Maybe your so-so leads or bad leads are coming from another particular source. And so tracking where your opportunities are coming from is super key to, again, begin that flywheel effect, honing in and focusing. So super easy to do that and follow up. You can track where your contact came from, where your projects are coming from, pull that report, check out, like Sarah said, all our reporting stuff, webinars and videos, a whole bunch of stuff there. All right, high quality partners. So let's say, just since we're talking about roofing here, let's say you're focused on high rise residential condos, but when you're putting a new roof on, it's not only roofing. You usually have HVAC involved, electrical involved, whole bunch of other things that might be involved that are adjacent to what you are doing, right? It would be a good idea to reach out to those companies, partner with them so that you can bring each other in on these different deals. So like if the HVAC company that you're partnered with has really great relationships with this property management company or this building owner or whatever it is, they can bring you in as a trusted partner. Right? So that's how you're going to be able to double down on those good quality opportunities. So super critical to have that, from like a business development prospect. So prospects, that's the 5% top takeaway. Lead response time in less than 1 hour. Ideal client profile, really honing in on that. Track your lead sources and high quality partners. Super important. All right, your playbook. Okay, so most of the red zone companies that we've seen have no playbook at all, processes in my head, or if we have a few sales guys that are doing well, they might just take that process out the door. It happens, but it's super important to have a company playbook so that you can make a repeatable, scalable. So what do the danger zone players do? They have a few top players that really carry the team. They have a lot of opportunities, so it's more order taking than anything. You still need to have a good process and playbook in place for that. And in the big and beg zone, you usually have one or two people that are the heavy hitters that really bring in the deals, and you have to do it their way, or whether the data supports it or not. Um, and they're kind of bottlenecking that scalability, right? So, and maybe that's because the owner has a few relationships here and there that really bring in those big deals, but having a good playbook helps that process become repeatable. So, what do the winners do? They have success stories, they have sales tools, so we can um, unsilo the sales process, the bidding process, the estimating process out of one or a few people's head and really socialize that across the company through stories, through tools, through process, like in follow up, that you can just hire a new person and have them run within the systems. But what are the top 5% doing? Their playbook shows that they are specialists and not a generalist. I have this picture here of it's a brain surgery happening. Um, and I'm pretty sure if you're having brain surgery, you don't want to go to your, general practitioner for that, right? And why? Because we know the brain, is super complex. And if you're having surgery, you want to have an expert. When you're an expert, you're able to charge the big bucks because you are the expert. That is what Greg did with Best Roofing. Um, he focused on commercial, but he really was the go-to premier commercial roofer for high-rise condos in South Florida. He probably puts most of the roofs on here in South Florida because that's how they marketed and sold themselves, and they were specialists in this area rather than just roofing, rather than just commercial roofing. No, they were high-rise condo specialists. They have a really good, better, best approach to pricing. This is some very low hanging fruit where some customers might just like put out a price, but give your customers some options, whether it's warranties or maintenance programs or whatever it is that maybe they opt out of. But I find a lot of people are just giving a bid amount and that's it, right? Give them something to think about or to talk to you about so you can become, again, a specialist, a consultant, so that you build relationships and partner with them to the ultimate solution that they're looking for is to kind of take the service that you're providing off of their plate or you be their go-to partner in the problem that they're trying to solve. Checklist. So it's super important as you scale and grow your sales, your estimating, your project management team. Just dumb everything down into a simple checklist to make sure the right things get done at the right times. Follow up can help you do that through our activities in the projects area, in the contacts area. Just build the checklist into the process and make sure that things are getting done according to plan. So finally, best practices from top performers. We have this really great report on the dashboard that if you change the standard dashboard of your pipeline, there's one called the sales leader report in the top right drop down. And what it does, it takes all your users and stack ranks them from highest quoting a quota achieving to lowest quota achieving. A lot of our customers have this on the TV in the sales pit or in their office, and it's a competition month to month is who's going to be at the top of the leaderboard. Bring that into your culture, make it a high performing team instead of relying on one or two high performers, right? But once you identify those high performers, them show the rest of the team the ropes, have them copy the stories and experiences that your top performer has, right? Maybe there's some stories that, we all have the stories that we tell over and over and over again. If you're new people, just say the same stories, right? About your company. Have your new people have a storytelling time where your sales team or project team really came through for a customer, socialize that so that your new people or your struggling people can use the same stories to win customers and hearts and minds over. So that's what the top 5% are doing with their playbooks. They're specialists. They have a good, better, best approach to pricing, checklists, and best practices. Pipeline, pipeline management. That's probably Alaska, the Alaskan pipeline.
That's what it looks like to
Um,
me. Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful. A fun fact, one of my favorite podcasts or video, I don't know what you call it, on YouTube is something called Outdoor Boys.
Huh.
It's great. It's wholesome. It's just a dad, this dad and his boys going camping, survival kind of stuff. Check it out. It's huge, actually. They have millions and millions of subscribers. And it takes him and his little kids out, and they're like fishing in the creek and a whole bunch of stuff. Really fun watch with the family. So let's talk about pipeline. So bankrupt zone, people are like, pipeline management, what's a pipeline? We eat what we kill. We throw things out there. If it happens, it happens. We don't follow up on a project. We don't check in. If if we win it, they'll reach out to us. Don't recommend that. Right? Like if construction is all about relationships, you have to manage your pipeline, and that's the number one vehicle to develop relationships. Danger zone. So because you have a lot of leads, you're trying to win a deal and you might cut margin on that job just to win the job. The good thing that you guys do is that you have a steady stream of opportunities, but low margin. Bid and beg zone, few deals, feast or famine. The good thing that you do with your pipeline is that you're zoned in on your future pipeline because, again, it's feast or famine. You need that opportunity and you need more of it, right? So again, that goes back to the prospecting section that we just went through. So what do the winners do with their pipeline? They create that steady stream of predictable jobs, right? So they know that, okay, maybe we have a lot of leads, but we want to focus on the higher margin ones. Or maybe we have a few amount of opportunities, and we're doing a lot of work to develop more opportunities. So what do the top 5% do? They follow up 5 to 12 times. This is the data sheet that Greg saw that named us follow up. And 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect, which is unbelievable. So, like half of your opportunities are falling through the cracks just because nobody touched base with them. Crazy. Now, 25% of salespeople make 2 contacts and stop, 12 make 3, and only 10 salespeople make more than 3 contacts. Now, I understand why that might be the case because they feel like, oh, I'm annoying people, or they're just lazy and don't do it. But the flip side of the coin is 2% of sales are made on the first contact, 3 on the third, 5 or 3% on the second, 5% on the third, 10% on the fourth, but 80% of sales are made on the fifth. I don't know how many times I have followed up with a follow-up prospect and they reach out and say, hey, thank you so much for continuing to follow up with me and the company. We definitely want to join follow-up. Can you just check in with me in a few days? There's a project that I'm on site on and I want to spend time with you, right? I could probably count on one hand over 8 years people getting upset because you followed up with them. And here's the trick with that. All you have to do is ask their permission to follow up with them. Just say, hey, when do you want me to follow up with you? Next Tuesday. Great. And guess what? Follow up with them next Tuesday. They're not going to be upset. It's that commission breath that people are really get annoyed at. Or if you check in with them 5 times in a day, especially when they didn't ask you to do that, that's when people kind of get, annoyed at that. But following up, the numbers don't lie.
It goes back to the heart of the business, right? You're building this relationship. So when they tell you, when they give you permission and you follow up, you're actually fulfilling your commitment to them, which deepens the relationship. And whether or not they move forward, they at least know like the quality person that you are, right? Like you said you were going to do this and you followed through. So you're
Follow
automatically
up
like a
and
winning
follow
point.
through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just and when somebody says, "Hey, I'll follow up with you next week," and you never hear from them, it's a ding on the relationship. So it's critical. Know your strike zone. This is one that's really data heavy that you can build in our custom reporting. We have 100% customizable reporting available in the professional plan. If you're not on the professional plan and you're interested in that, just reach out to your customer success manager and they can either upgrade you, show you a demo of what that looks like. But here's a report that you can see what I'm talking about when it comes to strike zone. So on the bottom, you can see how old the opportunity is. And then on the left-hand side, you can see the value of that opportunity. And then the dots are your swings and your closing ratio on those swings. So obviously the strike zone here is 37% on deals that we'll call it around 10K under 30 days, right? So what does this tell us? How do we turn this into an actionable insight? If you see an opportunity coming in for this company and it's less than 30 days and is 10K, you're going to focus on that opportunity. Where on the other hand, if you have an opportunity that is 120 days and 15K, 0% likelihood that you have historically won it. So why waste your time on that opportunity? So knowing your strike zone is just going to help you, bid less, win more, and work smarter, not harder. So here, really, really interesting report so that you can know when should I swing, when should I not. So that's what the top 5% do. They follow up and they know their strike zone. Here's just like a screenshot of that you can take of all of the top 5% takeaways so
Yes,
that you
this
can
is
implement.
probably a good time if anybody wants to ask
Yeah.
questions, since we kind of have your summary points on the screen. And like Eric said, we will send this out afterwards to everyone who registered, whether they were able to attend today or not. And you can always forward on that email that will come from Zoom if there's somebody else in your company that you're like, oh, they could definitely benefit from this. We're hoping that like everyone on the call today, you're probably not in the red zone, right? Because you've made the decision to purchase a CRM. You're getting your mind in the right place. But how can you go from yellow to green and then really into that 5% zone that we're talking about here? So if you have any questions, put them in the chat and I will interrupt Eric.
Cool. I think that's all we have here from my side. So yeah, any questions? We'll stay on here a couple more minutes. We'll post them in the chat. And thank you guys.
Yeah, I was hoping you would tell that story about the roofer, even though
Yeah.
you were like, I have good connections. This would be a great experiment to run if my own house, I have a leak. And what do people do in the industry? You're almost like secret shopping.
Yeah. Yeah. And funny enough, so they came out, they gave me a quote. Three of them gave me a quote, never followed up on it. And I actually forgot about the leak. I forgot about it because it didn't rain for a couple weeks
Right, right.
and life got busy. And then when it rained again, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta figure. Then I pulled the trigger with the relationship that I had. But maybe I would have gone with one of the three if they would have came in at a good price and followed up with me. Who knows?
Right, that's the thing. You don't want to get in crisis zone. That's why so many of the systems and tips that you talked about today, it's like now is the time to implement them. I know that some people are like, Oh, we're in Q4. Whether you're like on a sales role and you feel like nobody is answering your questions right now because their brain's already with the turkey or they're getting ready for Christmas, like maybe you can work on these systems, putting them in place. Think about what good stories you have you could document, and the next salesperson that comes onto your team, you could be like, hey, don't claim it as your own. We're not asking you to lie, but you can give this example of something that our team has seen before, and that helps them become better at their job and so on. Okay, so Christy has a good question. If they have access to professional plan, where would they find the strike zone report?
So it's not built in your system specifically, but you can build it. So what you would do is click on the reports tab, go to the customizable custom report section of the reports tab, and then you'll see the report builder, where then you can select the dots, forget the special name for it, but the graph that pulls all the dots together, and then you pull in your projects, and it's not that hard to build out, but you can do that in the customizable reports.
And I'm looking at who is on our live call right now. It looks like most of you would probably work with Christine or Isaiah, so you can always reach out to them too. And they're so good about whether it's giving you step by step in an email or recording a quick video and sending it your way and showing you, like a screen recording of how to get there. They can definitely help because we want you to be able to utilize that. I'll leave just one more second for questions while I update you guys about some things in the near future. So we always have these customer success webinars on the third Thursday of the month, and I think that still works with the Christmas schedule. Sure enough, we will have it on December 18th, so 1 week before Christmas, and that'll be our last one of the year. I really like this one though, because that's the roadmap. That's when we have the opportunity to like undo the wrapping and talk about what's coming next, the present that it will be in 2026. So Eric will lead us through that. And then I mentioned earlier that we are in planning mode for our user conference, and everyone on this call today is a current user, which means you get to come for free. We're also going to put this on YouTube, so I have to give that, caveat so that people watching this later on don't just think they can show up. Um, but we are looking forward to that. And if you want to upgrade your plan, if you want additional training for your team, if you need custom reports built, anything like that, please reach out to your CS manager. They can assist you with that. We have lots of support options. So thank you for joining us. Eric, anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you all.
See you next time.
Bye.